This is Max and Mia podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Max and Mia podcast. I'm Max.
And I'm Mia. Thanks for joining us today. We're really glad you're here.
Whether you're listening on your commute, during a break, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you spending some time with us.
Exactly. We've got some interesting things to talk about today. So let's get started.
Sounds good to me. Shall we jump right in?
Let's do it.
So today, we're going to explore something that affects all of us: habits and discipline.
That's right. These are topics that come up constantly when we think about personal growth, productivity, or even just getting through our daily routines.
Before we dive in, though, we'd like to ask you something. If you're listening right now, pause for a moment and think about this. How would you define a habit? What does that word mean to you?
Take a few seconds. Try to put it into your own words. What is a habit, really?
All right, hopefully you've thought about it. Mia, what about you? How would you define it?
Well, for me, a habit is something you do regularly without thinking too much about it. It's almost automatic, like brushing your teeth in the morning or checking your phone when you wake up.
Yeah, I'd say something similar. It's a behavior that becomes part of your routine. You repeat it so often that it just happens naturally, almost like your brain goes on autopilot.
Exactly. And that's both powerful and a bit dangerous, don't you think? Because habits can be good or bad.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to how habits are formed, there's actually some fascinating research on this. Have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
I have, yes. It's such a practical book. Clear talks about how habits are built through a cycle: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Right. So basically, there's a trigger that initiates the behavior, then you feel a desire to act, you perform the action itself, and finally, you get some kind of reward that reinforces the whole loop.
And the key idea is that small changes, atomic habits as he calls them, can lead to remarkable results over time. You don't need to make huge transformations overnight.
Exactly. It's about consistency, not intensity. If you improve by just 1% each day, those gains compound.
Which brings us nicely to our next segment. We've got an audio clip of two friends chatting, and one of them talks about how he's recently started implementing new habits in his life.
It's a really relatable conversation, and you'll also notice some useful grammar patterns, particularly the present perfect and past simple tenses.
So let's listen to that now.
Hey, Rachel. How have you been? I feel like we haven't caught up properly in ages.
I know, right? I've been good, actually. Really good. Things have changed quite a bit since we last talked.
Oh, yeah? What's been going on?
Well, I've started making some changes to my daily routine. Small things, but they've made a real difference.
Like what?
So, about 2 months ago, I decided I needed to get healthier. I wasn't feeling great, I was tired all the time, staying up late, eating poorly, the usual stuff.
I remember you mentioned that last time we met. You were pretty stressed with work.
Exactly. So I started with something simple. I began going to bed earlier, just 30 minutes earlier than usual.
And did that help?
It did, yeah. At first it was difficult because I've always been a night owl, but after a week or so, I noticed I had more energy in the mornings. Then I added another habit.
What was that?
I started drinking water first thing when I wake up. It sounds silly, but I used to just grab coffee immediately. Now I drink a full glass of water before anything else.
That's actually smart. I've heard that's supposed to be really good for you.
It is. And then about a month ago, I joined a gym near my apartment. I've been going 3 times a week.
Wow, that's impressive. I've tried doing that so many times, but I always give up after a couple of weeks.
Honestly, I thought the same thing would happen to me, but I made it easier for myself. I go right after work before I even go home. If I go home first, I know I won't leave again.
That makes sense. So you've kept it up for a whole month now?
Yeah, pretty much. I've missed a few sessions here and there when things got busy, but I've been consistent overall.
And do you feel different?
Definitely. I sleep better, I have more energy, and I just feel, I don't know, more in control of my day. It's like I've taken charge of things instead of just letting life happen to me.
That's great. I really need to do something like that. I've been saying I'll start exercising for months now, but I'd never actually do it.
The thing is, you don't have to do everything at once. I didn't. I just picked one thing, made it a habit, and then added the next one.
Yeah, I guess I always think I need to change everything overnight, and then it feels overwhelming.
Exactly. Start small. What's one thing you've been wanting to do?
Well, I've thought about going for a morning walk. Nothing intense, just a 20-minute walk around the neighborhood.
That's perfect. Why don't you start tomorrow?
Maybe I will. Did you read something about habits or just figure this out yourself?
A bit of both. I read this book called Atomic Habits, and it really changed how I think about building routines. It talks about how small changes add up over time.
I've heard of that book. Everyone seems to recommend it.
It's worth reading, but honestly, the main thing I learned was just to be patient with myself and celebrate the small wins.
I like that. I think I need to stop being so hard on myself when I don't do things perfectly.
Absolutely. Progress is progress, no matter how small.
That was a nice conversation, wasn't it?
It really was. I think a lot of people can relate to what Rachel said. Wanting to make changes but not knowing where to start.
Absolutely. And I love how she emphasized starting small. It's something we often forget. We want immediate results, but real change takes time.
That's true. But there's something else I think is worth mentioning here. Discipline.
Right, because motivation alone isn't enough, is it?
Not at all. Motivation is what gets you started. It's that initial spark, that excitement when you decide to change something. But discipline is what keeps you going when that excitement fades.
Exactly. Rachel mentioned she's been going to the gym for a month. I'm sure there were days when she didn't feel like going, but she went anyway. That's discipline.
And that's the key difference. Motivation is an emotion. It comes and goes. Discipline is a commitment. It's showing up even when you don't want to.
I think people underestimate how important that is when building new habits. You can't rely on feeling motivated every single day.
No, you can't. So if you're listening and you're trying to build a new habit, remember this. Don't wait to feel motivated. Just start. Do the thing even when you don't feel like it. And that's how you build discipline.
Speaking of which, we'd love to hear from you. What habits are you trying to build right now? Or maybe what bad habits are you trying to break? We'd really like to know.
Yes, please do. Your stories might even inspire someone else who's listening.
Absolutely. Now, Mia, you mentioned bad habits. I think we've all struggled with those at some point.
Oh, definitely. I had a really bad habit a while back. I was constantly checking my phone, especially social media. I'd pick it up without even thinking about it.
How did you deal with that?
Well, first I had to admit it was a problem. Then I started leaving my phone in another room when I was working or spending time with family. It was hard at first. I felt anxious without it nearby. But after a couple of weeks, I realized I didn't miss it as much as I thought I would.
Oh, that's great. And now?
Now I'm much better. I still use my phone, obviously, but I'm more intentional about it. I decide when to check it rather than letting it control my attention.
That's a great example of breaking a habit by changing your environment. Sometimes the solution is simpler than we think.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to our second conversation today.
This one is a bit different. It's about opening up to someone when you're struggling with bad habits or challenges in your life.
Right. We all go through difficult moments, and sometimes we just need to talk about them. Sharing what we're dealing with can be incredibly helpful. It clears your mind, and often, the other person can offer a fresh perspective.
And it works both ways. Sometimes you're the one receiving advice, and other times you're the one giving it.
In this conversation, you'll hear two friends discussing some habits they're not proud of and what they're doing to address them. You'll also notice how they give each other advice and support.
It's a really honest conversation, and I think it shows how important it is to have people in your life you can be open with.
So let's listen to that now.
Hey, thanks for meeting up. I really needed this.
Of course. You sounded a bit stressed on the phone. What's going on?
I don't know. I've just been feeling really stuck lately, you know?
Stuck how?
Well, it's like I have all these bad habits that I know aren't good for me, but I can't seem to stop doing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Like what, for example?
Okay, so this is embarrassing, but I've been staying up really late playing video games, like way too late. I'll tell myself I'll stop at 11, and then suddenly it's 2 in the morning.
Okay, I mean, we've all been there.
But it's affecting everything. I'm exhausted at work. I'm drinking like 4 coffees a day just to function. And then I'm too wired to sleep properly even when I try to go to bed early.
That sounds rough. Have you tried, I don't know, setting an alarm or something to remind you to stop?
I have, actually, but I just ignore it. It's pathetic, honestly.
Hey, don't be so hard on yourself. Breaking habits is difficult. What about putting your console in another room or something?
That could work. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, like make it harder to access. If you have to get up and walk to another room, maybe you'll think twice about it.
That's actually a good idea. I should try that. What about you, though? You always seem to have everything together.
Oh, please. I definitely don't. I've been struggling with something too, actually.
Really? What is it?
Well, I've been eating really badly. Like, I'll skip breakfast, grab something quick for lunch, usually fast food, and then I'm so hungry by dinner that I just eat whatever's easiest, which is usually junk.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
And the worst part is, I know better. I know I should meal prep, I know I should plan ahead, but I just don't. It's like I'm too tired or too lazy. I don't know.
Why don't you start small? Like maybe just prep breakfast the night before or something?
You know what? That's not a bad idea. I could make overnight oats or something simple like that.
Exactly. And then once that becomes a habit, you can add lunch prep or whatever.
Look at you, giving me advice.
Hey, it's easier to give advice than to follow it yourself, right?
True, true. But seriously, I think we both need to be more intentional about this stuff. Like, we can't just keep saying we'll change and then do nothing about it.
You're right. I think part of the problem is that I wait until I feel motivated, and then when I don't feel motivated, I don't do anything.
Same here. But someone told me recently that you shouldn't wait for motivation. You just have to do the thing anyway, even if you don't feel like it.
That makes sense. It's like discipline over motivation, right?
Exactly. And I think another thing is being honest with ourselves about what's actually realistic. Like, I'm not going to suddenly start cooking gourmet meals every night. That's not realistic for me right now.
Yeah, and I'm probably not going to stop playing games completely. I enjoy it. But maybe I can set better boundaries.
Right. It's about finding balance, not perfection.
I like that. Balance, not perfection.
So what are you going to do? Like starting tonight or tomorrow?
I'm going to move my console to the spare room, and I'm going to set a strict cutoff time, let's say midnight, and actually stick to it.
Good. And I'm going to prep breakfast for the next 3 days when I get home today.
3 days? That's ambitious.
Well, let's see if I actually do it. But I'm going to try.
We should check in with each other next week, like hold each other accountable.
I love that idea. Let's do it.
All right. Thanks for listening, by the way. I feel better just talking about it.
Anytime. That's what friends are for, right? And honestly, talking about it helps me too. It makes it feel more real, like I actually have to follow through now.
Yeah, same. Okay, I've got to head out, but let's talk next week.
Definitely. Good luck with the whole sleep thing.
You too, with the food. We've got this.
We've got this.
You know what stood out to me in that conversation? How real it was.
Absolutely. Jake and Emma weren't trying to pretend they had it all figured out. They were vulnerable with each other. And I think that's what made their conversation so valuable.
Right. And they didn't just complain about their problems. They actually worked through solutions together. That's what good friends do.
Exactly. Jake's going to move his console to another room. Emma's going to prep her breakfasts. These aren't revolutionary ideas, but they're practical. And sometimes that's exactly what we need. Practical steps, not grand plans.
I also loved how they committed to checking in with each other next week. Accountability is so powerful when you're trying to change a habit.
It really is. It's one thing to say you'll do something, but when you've told someone else about it, there's this extra layer of commitment.
Now, there was something in their conversation that caught my attention, and I think it's worth clarifying for anyone listening. Jake said he wanted to stop playing video games so late, but Emma used the word quit when talking about junk food.
Oh, interesting. Are those interchangeable?
Not quite. They both refer to ending something, but there's a subtle difference in how we use them.
Go on.
So, stop usually means pausing or ending an action, often temporarily, like, can you stop making that noise? Or, I need to stop biting my nails. It doesn't necessarily imply permanence.
Right, so you might stop doing something for a while, but you could start again later.
Exactly, but quit tends to be more final, more serious. We use it when we're giving up a habit or addiction completely. I quit smoking 2 years ago. He quit drinking. It has a sense of finality to it.
So if someone says, I quit coffee, they mean they're done with it for good, not just taking a break.
Precisely. And we often use quit with vices or things that have been problematic. You quit smoking, you quit gambling. You wouldn't really say, I quit reading books. That would sound strange.
That makes sense. So it's about the seriousness and permanence of the decision.
Right. Though I should mention in casual conversation, people sometimes use them interchangeably. But if you want to be precise, that's the distinction.
Good to know. Now, before we finish today, there's one more thing I think we should talk about. It relates to habits, but it's something that prevents us from building good ones in the first place.
What's that?
Procrastination. Do you know what procrastination really is?
I think most people would say it's just putting things off, right? Being lazy or not managing your time well.
That's what people think. But it's actually more complicated than that. Procrastination isn't really about laziness or time management. It's about emotions.
How so?
Well, when we procrastinate, we're usually avoiding negative feelings. Maybe a task feels overwhelming. Maybe we're afraid we'll fail at it. Maybe it's just boring. So instead of dealing with those uncomfortable feelings, we do something easier, something that makes us feel better in the moment.
So, it's a form of emotional avoidance.
Exactly. We're choosing immediate relief over long-term benefit. And that's why telling yourself to just do it often doesn't work. You're not addressing the underlying emotion.
That's a really important point. So, how do you actually deal with procrastination if it's an emotional issue?
There are several approaches. One is to break tasks down into much smaller pieces. If something feels overwhelming, that's often because you're looking at it as one huge thing. But if you break it into tiny steps, each step becomes manageable.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you need to write a paper. That sounds massive and overwhelming. But what if you just say, I'm going to write the first sentence? That's not overwhelming. You can do that. And once you've written the first sentence, the next one comes easier.
I like that. Start so small that you can't say no.
Exactly. Another technique is the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Don't let it sit on your to-do list.
Right? Because often the thought of doing something takes more energy than actually doing it.
Precisely. And there's also the Pomodoro technique. Work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. It makes work feel less endless because you know relief is coming.
I've tried that before. It does help, especially with tasks you really don't want to do.
But I think the most important thing is to figure out why you're procrastinating. Are you afraid of failing? Are you a perfectionist who's worried it won't be good enough? Do you lack clarity on what you're supposed to do? Once you identify the real reason, you can address it directly.
And sometimes you just need to accept that you won't feel like doing it. And that's okay. You do it anyway.
Right. That brings us back to discipline. Discipline means doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel about it.
Which is exactly what we talked about earlier in the episode.
It all connects, doesn't it? Habits, discipline, procrastination, they're all part of the same challenge. How do we become the person we want to be, even when it's difficult?
And I think the answer is one small step at a time, with patience, with self-compassion, and often with support from others.
Beautifully said. And that brings us to the end of today's episode.
It does. So let's take a moment to look back at everything we covered today.
We started by asking you to think about what a habit really is. That automatic behavior that becomes part of your routine. We discussed how habits form through cycles of cue, craving, response, and reward, drawing on insights from James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Then we listened to Rachel and Tom talk about implementing new habits. Rachel shared how she's improved her health by starting small, going to bed earlier, drinking water first thing, going to the gym regularly. The key was consistency and making it easy for herself.
After that, we explored the crucial difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation gets you started, but discipline is what carries you through when motivation fades. We can't wait to feel motivated. We have to act regardless of how we feel.
I shared my own struggle with checking my phone constantly and how I broke that habit by changing my environment, leaving my phone in another room. Sometimes the solution is simpler than we think.
Then we heard Jake and Emma have an honest conversation about their struggles. Jake with staying up too late gaming, Emma with poor eating habits. What made their conversation special was how they supported each other, offered practical advice, and committed to accountability.
We clarified the difference between stop and quit. Stop is often temporary or about pausing an action, while quit is more permanent and serious, usually for vices or addictions.
And finally, we tackled procrastination. Not as a time management problem, but as an emotional one. We avoid tasks because of how they make us feel, and the solution is to address those feelings, break tasks into smaller pieces, and understand our own patterns.
If you've stayed with us through this entire episode, thank you. Really. We know you have countless options for how to spend your time, and you chose to spend it here with us.
Learning a language is a journey, and it's not always linear. Some days you'll feel motivated, other days you won't. But showing up consistently, even when it's hard, that's what makes the difference.
Every conversation you listen to, every word you learn, every mistake you make and learn from, it all adds up. You're building a skill that will open doors, connect you with people, and expand your world.
So stay curious, stay committed, and remember that progress doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent.
We'll be back with another episode soon. Until then, take what we talked about today and see how it applies to your own life. Maybe there's a habit you want to build, or one you want to break. Start small, be patient with yourself.
And if you ever want to share your experiences or suggest topics for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you.
All right, that's all for today. Thanks again for listening.
Take care, everyone.
See you next time.
Goodbye.